A very good evening, a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay, and welcome not to the Dan Really Likes Wine studio, or indeed Dan's bedroom, which has been a location for the last little while as the cellar gets renovated, but instead to somewhere that a few of you might recognize, either from the show 3 years ago, I think now, or if you just happen to spend some time drinking wine in Stellenbosch. This is Montegray and Independent, charming little wine bar next door to its sister establishment, which is the Bartinney Wine Bar, both of them sitting in the heart of downtown Stellenbosch, and it's a cracking place to sit down for a quiet glass of wine and while away the afternoon or the early evening and wrap up a tough day. And it's been a very tough day so far. Spent time at Bloemendal, having a look at the estate ahead of next week, and a very special broadcast we'll be doing as we launch the new very top secret wine that's coming out of the Bloemendal next week. Very excited about that. Also spent some time today out at Plaisir, which is owned by the Jordan family, who own the very bar we find ourselves in now, Montegray and Independent, and also some time at Haasendal. I think we'll be back at Haasendal pretty soon because it is looking magnificent, including the homestead. If you haven't seen the homestead at Haasendal, jump on to the internet as soon as the show is finished. Go and have a look. It is extraordinary and a great place to look at if you require a winelands escape. Right now, though, the escapism is focused on wine, and one particular wine in particular, not an estate, but instead a varietal, and that varietal is Sauvignon Blanc, because tomorrow is International Sauvignon Blanc Day. I've got no doubt that it is sitting on your calendar at the moment, and it's one that we celebrated by great gusto, in particular by the group of people that we have with us here this evening. It's a Sauvignon Blanc Day special, and so my guests today hail from 4 different corners of the Sauvignon Blanc making world here in South Africa. We have someone from Constantia, unsurprisingly, equally to be expected, somebody from the Durbanville area, someone from Sauvignon Blanc, who we normally see on the show in a red wine capacity, and then out to Elgin, which is also home of some terrific Sauvignon Blanc. So in no particular order, it's a very warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, to Matt Day from Klein Constantia, to Andrew Gunn out of Iona, Rudger from Condé, and to Andri Hanekom, who is in Durbanville. Guys, a warm welcome, and preemptively, because it's really only tomorrow, happy Sauvignon Blanc Day, a big day on your collective calendars. So congratulations to all of you in advance, and thank you for joining me to celebrate what is as much a drinking of Sauvignon Blanc as it is a celebration of the varietal, and why you guys are all so passionate. And before we really start drinking the wine, that's what I'd like to kick off with, and see if we can get a simmering fight going between Matt and Andrew and where the best Sauvignon Blanc comes from. But Matt, kick off with you. We've spent a lot of time talking about this grape in the last while, and I think it's pretty well documented, Matt, that you probably need professional help based on the obsession that you have with Sauvignon Blanc. You'd marry the stuff if you could. It's got under your skin. It's become such a part of who you are, not just as a winemaker, but I think as a person as well. What is it for you about Sauvignon Blanc that really strikes that chord?
Oh, brilliant. Well, thanks, Dan. I think I pretty much only like Sauvignon Blanc because it's the only wine that I know how to make, and it's one of those things. No, I'm just kidding. The other thing is I'm confused. I don't understand why we have to have a single day for drinking Sauvignon Blanc. I thought Sauvignon Blanc we should be drinking every single day of the week. But it is nice to celebrate this day, and it's nice to get everyone together and kind of enjoy these wines. So I've got some Klein Constantia Estate Sauvignon Blanc 2020 in my glass. We have another wine here, it's the Matisse 2017. And as Dan is quite, I wanted to say rudely mentioned, I'm absolutely crazy about Sauvignon Blanc. We make a little wine, you can see in the other corner there, the Van de Constance of Klein Constantia. But the Estate Sauvignon Blanc is something that we are super passionate about, and we think that works really well in this terroir and climate. Let's not talk about terroir and climate and about how cool we are and how much better we are than, I'm just kidding. But I'm not going to get stuck into too much about details about Constantia Sauvignon Blanc. All I need to say is, I'm not going to, all I wanted to say is there's a great gap in the world for Sauvignon Blanc, especially in the new world of Sauvignon Blanc. We all know New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs, and they've flooded the market for the last years, probably 20 years. And there's a great gap in the market for another wine-producing region or country to come up and pioneer kind of Sauvignon Blanc. And I think the proof is in the pudding. And we've got 5 different regions here that can produce some amazing Sauvignon Blancs. And we can be the best of the best in the world. It is incredible to see. The other thing that I can add is the reason why Sauvignon Blanc kind of makes sense is it's one of the most pure cultivars. It's one of the noble cultivars. I think one of the noble 5. And it really makes sense to me because it is that one cultivar that can represent a sense of place more than any other cultivar. And we can see it here at Klein Constantia. I mean, we've got 42 different sites, ranging from east facing to south facing, getting to some elevation, talking about wind and soil and all the rest. And the crazy thing is that every single site represents a different style of Sauvignon Blanc. And if we can get it right in South Africa in general, if we can get it right, we can represent those sites into a specific flavor and a specific style of Sauvignon Blanc. And then we can compete with the likes of Sancerre in France and say that we can make some super elegant terroir-specific or site-specific Sauvignon Blancs. And for me, the goal is to go back to a style of making Sauvignon Blanc that is more kind of away from what I was taught in university, and it goes down to a style that is kind of pure to the sense of place in the way that we make it. So we've moved away from all the conventional ways of doing it. So it's, we're almost 100% wild from at the moment. And I think my university professor would kind of cringe, or he would lose it with me if he saw that the way that we're doing it. We're literally abusing Sauvignon Blanc as much as we can. But the result is incredible. It really can express a beautiful style. Dan, I think I can speak for about 20 minutes, but I don't think I should speak for that long. Other than to say that, drink as much Sauvignon Blanc as you can, guys. It is an incredible varietal. And it's not just a tutti frutti Sauvignon Blanc, or try to steer clear of the tutti frutti Sauvignon Blancs that literally just have flavor and no palate weight. Try and find the Sauvignon Blancs that actually have some sense of place and texture and style. And that way we can revive the name of Sauvignon Blanc in the world. I think we've far too often became everything ABS. I suppose ABC, which is anything but Chardonnay, it's become ABS. And with like-minded producers like we have in the show tonight, we can kind of get rid of that stigma around Sauvignon Blanc and get people to realize that it is super incredible. I'll leave it at that.
I think you might just be able to guess that Matt is rather interested in Sauvignon Blanc and a comprehensive snapshot of that passion. And we'll look a little more specifically at the Constantia area in a moment and why it works so well. I know we had Andri with us a moment ago. I think we might have lost him for now, so we'll try and get him back as soon as we can. But let's head out to Elgin and to Iona. Another Sauvignon Blanc that has become a bit of a cult classic. You see it on any restaurant list. It's the go-to wine for so many people. Again, we'll talk about where you are in a second, Andrew, and why that lends itself to Sauvignon Blanc. But why does Sauvignon Blanc lend itself to you? What's the magic of the grape, of the varietal, for the Andrew Gunn wine story?
Yeah, look, I must agree with Matt. I think they've certainly embraced Sauvignon Blanc, and they produce many different styles and lots of different bottlings of Sauvignon. I think that Sauvignon's traditional home is Sancerre in France. It's a cool growing region, and as Matt says, they very little manipulation in the cellar, and they express the vineyard. And I think that's, to me, what great Sauvignon Blanc is all about. I think, quite frankly, it's a variety. As I was at a Sauvignon Blanc Bowls, and one of the bylines was it's the most widely drunk wine in South Africa, which means that it's probably grown in the most widely grown grape in South Africa, from the cool climates of Elgin to Durbanville, Elam, and Constantia. And I think it's also made in warm climates. And I think in the warmer climates, there's quite a lot of winemaker input. It's not to say that I'm anti-winemaker input, because it's like, great ingredients. If you've got a good chef, you need good ingredients. But I do think I concur with Matt, that great Sauvignon Blancs have a sense of place, where you are able to ripen the grapes perfectly, where you'd have to do no intervention. You don't have to add sugar. It's very seldom you have to add acid with Sauvignon. But certainly to balance acid, if you pick early, you sometimes have to add sugar. Whereas in the cool climates, you get this beautiful balance between alcohol, acid, flavor, and low pHs, which give this amazing Sauvignon Blanc, which, as Matt was saying, is a noble variety. And it should command the respect that it deserves. And I would also go and seek out the cool climate Sauvignons that give you that beautiful balance. I often say that there are two types of Sauvignon Blancs: those that have wonderful balance, and those that you have to buy a packet of Rennies to drink them with. So the acids can be quite overpowering. And often, some Sauvignon Blancs, and I'm talking generally, and particularly New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs, Marlborough, they're very stereotyped. You can pick up Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc. It's a massive growing area, but they are very stereotyped. And I think what we get in South Africa is lots of wonderful different styles. And I love the wine. And I think the other thing I want to mention is that if you barrel ferment Sauvignon Blanc, do some wild ferments in barrel, you get wonderful results. You'll notice that some of the top rated Sauvignon Blancs in a lot of the competitions are often barrel fermented. I opened a bottle of 10-year-old Sauvignon Blanc to somebody yesterday who said he was a bit skeptical about Sauvignon Blanc aging. It was absolutely magnificent. None of the green pea, asparagus flavors, but just beautiful complexity and wonderful acidity. No sign of yellowing. So yeah, I think Sauvignon Blanc is totally underrated as a great wine to drink, and it's very versatile with food.
Well, you're getting some endorsement there. Lisa Harlow watching over in the UK. Afternoon, Andrew. Missed visiting Iona this year. I've seen you sorting your Sauvignon Blanc grapes in the vineyard in mid-March. I love the style you make, and we're going to focus in on that style in a second. Before I jump over to Durbanville, because Andri is back, far more important really today than the wine that you make or the quality thereof. Andrew, what happened in the Lawn Bowls competition? Are you the Stellenbosch Sauvignon Blanc Day Lawn Bowls champion as of today?
No, bowls we weren't playing singles, probably just as well, because I think I was the weak link in the team. No, I often I used to play with the bowls when I was younger. Funny enough, my secretary calls it old man's balls, which I thought was a bit of an insult. But anyway, we didn't fare very well. It was there were a number of teams, and teams of 4. I think we probably came stone last, Dan.
Well, it's the effort that counts and the celebration. So I'm glad you got to do something cool. In fact, I think Rudger's doing some bowls tomorrow. We'll check in with him in a second. But let's go over to Durbanville and another great Sauvignon Blanc territory. The same question really that I've asked our other two guests so far, Andri. In terms of how Sauvignon Blanc caught your attention, how it got under your skin, as Sauvignon Blanc seems to with certain winemakers, and why it's got a bit of magic for you.
No, it's started also in Stellenbosch, and as a viticulturist on Dalam Wine Estates, and then later on at Marion Wine Estates under Michel Duclos. And for me, it's such a nice variety that you can actually manipulate in all stages, from vineyard through obviously the part that I enjoy almost most. And then all the way through into the cellar, what you can achieve with mouthfeel, and because for me that is what's very important in a Sauvignon Blanc, all the way through in the back of the palate, and of course, and just everything that you can achieve with the wine. Sorry, I'm a bit flustered trying to get my thing working again, but Yeah.
And it's a wine area that has given us not just great winemakers, but super wine, and we'll get into those wines in a moment. Let's check in with our other lawn bowls player. Rudger, has it been sleepless nights building up to tomorrow's big Sauvignon Blanc Day lawn bowls challenge in Stellenbosch?
Yeah, hi Dan. Yeah, pretty excited to do the whole lawn bowl thing. I think it's my first time, so don't really know what to expect, but I know that my companion, the Sauvignon Blanc, is going to be right next to me, so it will probably give me a lot of patience and confidence to go on between the different teams. Hopefully we can do well. But yeah, I think the whole point behind the lawn bowl thing is to celebrate Sauvignon. We have a lot of people that's coming together from all different areas in the Western Cape and maybe even nationally. And for me, that's what Sauvignon Blanc is about. I think that's what all wine is about for me, and the wines that we make here at Condé. It's about enjoying, it's about enjoyment, and specifically Sauvignon Blanc. It's all about flavor, aromas, and that was how basically I was brought up in my house. Smelling good food, spices, peppery notes, fruit, and working with Sauvignon Blanc, it always excites me because it always takes you back to your childhood days. Either on the rugby field or even getting up to no good in your mother's kitchen. So it's always.
Some nostalgia there and a big smile from Rudger. Man, we normally associate with red wine on this show, as I mentioned earlier. Let's dive into wine, Matt. Let's come back to you. You did touch on it a little. Your classic Klein Constantia Sauvignon Blanc. It's a hugely popular wine. It's amongst your best sellers. Maybe not quite Van der Constance numbers, but it's a wine that flies off the shelves pretty quickly. Place it for me in the sense of Constantia. Is this a wine that speaks so particularly, given you've got 170,000 different vineyards? Is this one that really shows off and celebrates the very best of Constantia?
So Dan, just quickly before I get into that, I want to ask Rudger, what school did you go to that you were drinking Sauvignon Blanc on the rugby field? That's pretty cool. I want to go there.
I won't promote that,
Matt. Good game at rugby. So just quickly to get into this state Sauvignon Blanc from Klein Constantia. This is actually our 2020 release. It's just come out this month, or last month, I guess. We're beginning of where we may. Just to put you in the picture, and as Dan has said, we actually make 10 different Sauvignon Blancs at Klein Constantia, which vary from the completely crazy wild ferment, single barrel, over the top, Puy Fumé kind of style Sauvignon Blanc, to a couple of other single vineyards. And then we've got the Matisse. And we literally take all of these experimental Sauvignon Blancs and we play around with them as much as we can to try and improve the style of the beautiful estate Sauvignon Blanc, as we can call it. So that's how we got into the focus of going wild ferment. That's how we went onto the focus of oxidative processing and crush. And that's how we pushed the boundaries, as we used all of that to try and make the estate Sauvignon Blanc super special. Just to put a couple of words in there for the estate Sauvignon Blanc. The 1986 estate Sauvignon Blanc, we don't usually talk about the past, but Klein Constantia has been making Sauvignon Blanc for the last almost pretty much as long as I've been alive, kind of thing. Klein Constantia was one of the pioneers in the old days of producing Sauvignon Blanc, and that's purely because of the sense of place that we have here. It really is special, and it really is perfect for this grape varietal. And I hate saying it's because of the cool climate or whatever it is. They all kind of work together. But that 86 estate Sauvignon Blanc is still regarded as probably the greatest Sauvignon Blanc ever made in South Africa. And then we went on to produce the 87, and they were all really highly renowned. And Klein Constantia always had this reputation of producing pretty damn smart Sauvignon Blancs. Then we got to a point that we almost became quite complacent in the terms of the way that we make Sauvignon Blanc. And it's incredible to see that a lot of other wines just stepped it up quite a lot. And now there's a huge area of competition in the field of Sauvignon Blanc in South Africa. There's incredible wines out there. So we're finding it more and more difficult to compete in that sense of that super high-end Sauvignon Blanc level. But that is our goal at the moment with Estate Sauvignon Blanc, is to, it is fairly commercial, but you can get it in most places in South Africa. We're producing just over 100,000 bottles at the moment. But the goal is to produce the greatest of the great Sauvignon Blanc that we possibly can from this property. So 42 different vineyard sites, each and every single one of them blended together after fermentation once they've expressed their sense of place. And hopefully that perfect jigsaw puzzle of harmony of Sauvignon Blanc, of what it should be. Balance, as Andrew said, is exactly what we're looking for. How's that, Dan? Another 15 minutes of me lecturing you.
I'm loving every minute. It's always a learning experience with all of our winemakers on the show. A friend of yours tuning in, Michelle Stradham, saying hi, Matt, as she watches. Grant Sauls, who's watching us on YouTube. I really enjoy the Métis Sauvignon Blanc, just delicious. Well, we're going to be trying that Métis in just a moment. And then Reginald Pecknoy from Cheetah Plains up in the Sabi Sands, with an amount of brilliant Sauvignon Blanc produced beyond South Africa, has proven to be one of the best. Well done, all the Cape winemakers. Let the fun go on. There's plenty of fun being had beyond Constantia. They have a fair amount of it out in Durbanville as well. Andri, in the context of the water lily, the Bloemendal water lily, which we've got here as well, the 2020. Tell us a little bit about the wine, but also explain for somebody who's thinking, well, Constantia's kind of cool climate. You've got the breezes coming from the sea. Durbanville's got something similar. What's the distinction? What's making the Sauvignon Blanc of Durbanville Hills different to Constantia in particular and the other areas in general?
I don't want to use too much of the cliches, but and go onwards about our proximity to the ocean. But I think one of the nicest views that I had yesterday was experiencing the cold front coming through over Tygerberg Mountain. You can actually see the clouds coming through, and you can smell the ocean on the breeze. Durbanville itself, it's synonymous with Sauvignon Blanc. I think one of the best, or the best Sauvignon Blanc vineyards are situated in Durbanville, and obviously my colleagues, and we can have a nice discussion about that. But for me, it's the soil types, the dryland vineyards that we have on all of our hills, the low production that we have, the southeaster that hammers our vineyards. Everybody plays around with all different styles of Sauvignon Blanc on the farm, and like Matt mentioned with the Sauvignon Blanc that they make, we do exactly the same. As you experiment with so many different styles. 60% of Bloemendal, our 130 hectare vineyards, are planted under Sauvignon Blanc, and you make as many different styles of Sauvignon Blanc as you can, and you experiment with different yeasts and different fermentation styles, and aging in oak and blending, and in the end, you get to a point where you're capable of making a wine that, with all these different, like Matt says, different puzzle pieces that you build. And for me, I think we're one of the smaller estates that you're interviewing tonight. I mean, my total production on the Water Lily Sauvignon Blanc is 17,000 bottles. But this is the one that we're most well known in Durbanville for. And it's just such an amazing varietal that you can play around with so many different aspects, and your end product is always always amazing. It's for me, it's just what I'm capable of doing in Durbanville, I haven't been able to achieve in all the other wine regions that I've worked in and made wine in.
If you're watching at the moment, we're coming to you live from the Montegrain Independent Wine Bar, which is next door to Bartinney Wine Bar in downtown Stellenbosch, and a special celebration of International Sauvignon Blanc Day, a day which is reminding us of not just how good our Sauvignon Blanc is, but the variety of range and terroir which influences our Sauvignon Blanc. And I think we might need a digital car park after the show for Matt and Andri to meet and trade a few punches to settle scores as to what is best, but he might not be the only one, because we've also got Elgin raising a hand. Hang on, Durbanville, Constantia, we're not too bad either. Following on the thread of that conversation, Mr. Gunn, Constantia celebrated massively, rightly so to Durbanville. Let's head over to Elgin, and again, drinking your monopole Sauvignon Blanc. What makes this wine so special? What makes where you are, where Iona is, where Elgin is, just so well suited to the art of Sauvignon Blanc?
Yeah, well, obviously I'm biased. I never say my wines are better than anybody else's. I believe they're different, and that's what we celebrate. Dan, yeah, I bought this farm in '97. It was a rundown apple farm. I came down from Joburg, and I quickly realized that I was going nowhere fast. The farm was planted to Golden Delicious and Granny Smith's. I'm an engineer by training. I put temperature loggers around the farm and did a long-term climatic analysis using a weather station in Elgin. And with the help of Nicholl, who's a geomorphologist at Reading University, we compared that information with the great wine growing regions of the world. And we found that we came to the conclusion that we were somewhere between Sancerre and Burgundy. I went to Professor Archer and he said, Andrew, I'm sorry to disappoint you. There's no such farm as this in South Africa. Anyway, he eventually got excited and we started planting Sauvignon. We planted our first vineyards in '98. We currently have 30 hectares of vineyards. We've got at least 12 different clones. And, our focus is on making one Sauvignon Blanc, which is the Iona. We've introduced this concept of monopole, which is a bit like the old estate. Well, it's not old, it's still current estate wines. We're not an estate because we have we've got another brand called Solace and One Man Band, which is apart from Iona. So we introduced this concept of monopole, where we grow all our own fruit. We don't buy in grapes. We don't sell grapes. So our focus is on individual vineyard sites. We pick when the grapes are perfectly ripe. There's very little intervention in the cellar. We visited Sancerre in the early days in 2003, and they focus on picking on analysis. They look for a pH of around 3.1, 3.2, acids of about 7, and they look for a potential alcohol of 12.5 to 13. And we find that the sweet spot for us is 13% alcohol and about 3.2 pH, and then we've got an acid of about 7.5. We don't really go on the flavor of the grapes because I think that can be very subjective. You wander through a vineyard just before harvest and you get seduced by, you sort of search out berries, and you get seduced by the flavor of these beautiful Sauvignon Blanc grapes. I remember in my early days when our viticulturist came and he said, Andrew, I think these grapes are ready to pick. I said, no, they're not. And when we did the analysis, they were sitting at 19 Balling. So the grapes would have been quite green, but there were still intense flavors. So that's why I think analysis of the grapes is so important. And we do quite a lot of wild ferment. We don't do 100% wild ferment. We bought a thing called an oscillus destemmer, which is a very gentle destemmer. We don't crush the grapes. We've got a Worms press, which is a fantastic press. So the grapes go into the press, juice is pressed off, settled overnight, and some of it's wild fermented, we use different yeasts. But it's a very simple process. And then we probably have, I'd say, in total about 15 different vineyard sites. And at the end of the day, we blend them, the best components. And if there's anything left, that goes into our second label, which is called Sophie de Blanche. And it's quite relevant, being it's a nickname for Sauvignon Blanc. So that's our approach to producing Sauvignon. The interesting thing is I know this claim, I mean, we talk about cool. I believe we are the coolest vineyard site in South Africa. We're on a mountain plateau 450 meters above sea level, overlooking the Atlantic, 3 kilometers to the south. And we harvest our last Sauvignon Blanc at the end of March, early April. And I think that's, we have this long, slow ripening period. I say it's a bit like making a stew. Do you make a stew at a very high temperature for a short time, or do you cook it slowly for a long time? And I think that's the beauty of these cool climates, which you get specifically in Elgin, where you get this long, slow ripening period with wonderful flavor development, good acidity, and low potential alcohols.
What I love about all three of your estates, of your regions, is not only a sense of arrogance, you're just enormously proud and feel you're making world-class Sauvignon Blanc. And it's great that we've got three terrific regions who can compete. The wine we've tasted tonight all showcase Sauvignon Blanc quite brilliantly. But then we head over to Stellenbosch and we find Rudger, who should be making red wine. That's what you do where Stark Condé is, Rudger. What on earth are you doing making Sauvignon Blanc in Stellenbosch? And why are you throwing it in barrels, Rudger van Beek?
Yeah, I just wanted to stick up my hand to tell everyone, hey, I'm still here too, you know, like you're talking about three wine regions, and I forgot I was almost on a Zoom call here. Yeah, so I was just listening to everyone's production numbers and the style, and yeah, I think our volume is very low. For me, this is a type of a unicorn wine for our range. We produce about 8,000 bottles, and what makes it so special is that we only work from one single vineyard on our estate. Now, I know a lot of people would probably cringe their eyes when they're like, oh, Stellenbosch Sauvignon Blanc, what are you doing? And that's probably why it makes it so interesting, and why I'm so in love with this wine is always just to punch above our weight, prove people wrong, prove people that our estate can produce some really good quality Sauvignon Blanc. So basically, the wine that I made here, we know that Stellenbosch is a bit warmer than the other climatic conditions or the other areas that they just explained. And what actually makes this vineyard so unique is that we work with a nice elevation. The vineyards are planted at 400 meters above sea level. We work with older vines. Literally, the vineyards are as old as I am at the moment. So there's a lot of respect that goes into the whole process of making Sauvignon Blanc. And why I'm saying that is that old vines tends to give you a bit more texture on the palate. And initially, we always tended to make Sauvignon Blanc just for our cafe. We have a nice restaurant here that brings a lot of people, tourists and local people in for a good meal. And everyone was asking for Sauvignon Blanc, but we saw the opportunity to make something special out of these vineyards. So we started this wine in 2016. It's called the Round Mountain Sauvignon Blanc. The farm is owned and has a rich Japanese tradition, which also makes it really fun because we are different cultures on this estate. And why we call it the Round Mountain is that my boss or my owner's mother-in-law's maiden name was Maruyama in Japan, and it literally translates to Round Mountain in Japanese. And yeah, it's something really special. So other producers have several different Sauvignon Blanc vineyard sites on the estate, or even on some other estates in cooler regions. We only work from one estate. So I just have one building block to work with. So what we do is that I try to be a bit more, you know, how do I say, experimental in picking the block at different alcohol levels, and just to create a bit of complexity. So we start at a lower alcohol level, and in general, it will give you different aromatics, a bit more acid, and then we will end a bit more riper just to balance everything out. And what all the other guys said is that to make great Sauvignon Blanc, it's all about having good balance. And I think, anyone that tries this wine, they're usually very surprised, because when I tell them it's all estate grown fruit, and they taste it, it knocks their socks off. So yeah, for the people that don't know me on Van Likes Wine, is that Stark Condé, we're farming organically, and next year I'm really excited. Next year will be our first fully certified organic harvest on the estate. So yeah, everything that happens here is really sustainable. and we pride ourselves in farming really responsibly. And yeah, anyone that's in the area, it's a really beautiful estate. I think in general, it's one of the most beautiful estates in South Africa.
It is an utterly charming place to visit, with an utterly charming winemaker to host you, should he be available and not busy practicing his lawn bowl skills. Touch on very quickly for us, if you will, Rudger, this decision to use some oak, because we think back to the bad old days of Chardonnay when the oak completely overwhelmed the fruit and we lost the essence of what Chardonnay really was. As we sit with Sauvignon Blanc, it is generally that battle between fruit and acid, and the bad Sauvignon Blanc, as Andrew reminded us, is that whereby the acid just overwhelms everything. You've now brought oak into the mix as well. What prompts the decision to do that, and how does that guide the wine into a new space?
Yeah, so in general, I feel there's a stigma to Stellenbosch Sauvignon Blanc, where everyone says Stellenbosch Sauvignon Blanc can become a little bit too tutti frutti. And for me, I want to create something that is complex, that always lures you back into the glass, that people enjoy. And we identified that oak would actually play a massive role in the style that we like to make. Look again. We tend to make wines that firstly we would like to drink by ourselves, and then we hope that the consumer would tend to follow us. So the Sauvignon Blanc here it's 100% Sauvignon Blanc, single vineyard, that we literally ferment in French oak barrels, of which 3% is new, just to create another dimension on the palate and on the nose. And then after fermentation, it matures for about 8 months before we take it to bottle. And we use just a minimal bentonite fining just to clear out the wine. And literally there's not a lot of additives or anything extra that we add to the wine. So I try to make wines in a more natural way. I think it brings out more purity in all the wines.
Does indeed, and it just adds to this variety of Sauvignon Blanc we have, and it's a wine that can sometimes be viewed as being a little bit one-dimensional, that green pepper, lots of acid, maybe a bit of a paint stripper sometimes when not made well, but throwing in a bit of wood adds to our understanding of what Sauvignon Blanc can do. And if we go back to Klein Constantia, from what's becoming a slightly rowdy Montegrain independent wine bar here in Stellenbosch, where we're doing our live show in celebration of Sauvignon Blanc Day. Matt, you've got all of these different vineyards. They speak so many language of Sauvignon Blanc. How difficult is it to manage all of these, to remember what's tasting like, what you're creating, and from there, what is it in particular that gives us this metis of yours?
Oh, thanks, Dan. Right, so I just want to stick up with Stellenbosch. I've always loved the Thelema Sauvignon Blanc. I think that tops my list as one of the best Sauvignon Blancs in South Africa. So you can do it, provided that you have the right pocket of terroir in Stellenbosch. Just to touch base in terms of Sancerre, I mean, I've been traveling back and forth to Sancerre for numerous vintages, literally since I became winemaker here at Klein Constantia, to work with a producer called Pascal Jolivet. Pascal is pretty crazy. His winemaker in the old days was pretty crazy himself. He was a guy called Jean-Luc Sorty. And Dan, I'm sorry, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go a little bit geeky in terms of Sauvignon Blanc, because we're 38 minutes in, and most people who just wanted to listen to the intro have already left. So I can talk for another 20 minutes when it goes to Sauvignon Blanc. So just to go into that story, and I'll relay it back to the Matisse, because Matisse is a project that we started with them. So I'll get to that. So I quickly there we go. I quickly, if I can get the camera back onto my screen, I just looked in my cupboard earlier, and I tried to find some cool examples of what I could see. So over here, okay. So what I'm trying to get to now is when I went to Sancerre, I got there. This is the very first vintage I was there. I was walking around with Jean-Luc. I'd been at Pascal Jolivet for 27 years. I think I mentioned that. We went to 6 different terroirs, or six different sites throughout the town of Sancerre. And I thought it was absolutely crazy at the time, but I always used to think that Sauvignon Blanc is made in the cellar by really cool winemakers that know what they're doing. I got there, and Jean-Luc literally said to me, Matt, pick up the soil, and I still have the stones here from that day. said pick up the soil, smell it, get a sense of where it's coming for it, like almost taste it, taste the grapes, and then go back. And we went back into the cellar and we taste different wines from all those kind of soils. And if I can just show you quickly, and I'll get in, the only reason I'm showing you this is, okay, so that's a classic example of flint. Bash it together, it smells like gun smoke. This is very typical in Puy-Fumé and certain pockets of Sancerre. That's very typical chalk. And again, geeky guys, I'm sorry. Chalk, I'll get into the flavor now. And the last one is a crazy one. I don't know if you can see it there. It's a hell of a lot of fossils. It's a very fossilized kind of soil. I'm not a geologist or anything like that. I don't actually know what it's called. So in terms of the flavors that we got, the flinty soils gave you a very nice gun smoke kind of spiciness to it. The chalky soils kind of on the wine was more rich, more delicate, more bolder in terms of flavor. Together with the fossilized soils, I mean, I guess those are a little bit more complex. We always used to talk about the lacayette. So lacayette are the little chalk soil kind of particles. And each and every single one of those tasted like its sense of place. And what I'm trying to get to is in Constantia, and I'm pretty sure there's a whole lot of other regions in South Africa that have all these kind of different types of soils. And we always forget to do this in South Africa. We forget to talk about soil and the effect that it actually has on the wine itself. So the first one I'm showing you is decomposed granite. The second one is table mountain sandstone. The only reason I'm saying that is when Jean-Luc Sorty came out to do a harvest with us in 2013, we're literally tasting some grapes and said, this is perfect for my style. We loved it so much. We made a wine as his style, and he was so chilled. The way he made wine was literally forget about it and hope for the best, and it would turn out really well. So we did exactly that with the Matisse, and I'll get back to the soil now. What we realized is the wine started to show more of that sense of place. So the granite itself brought out more of a umami, salty, savory kind of characteristic to the wine, and the sandstone, very much like the chalk, brought out a really big richness to the wine. This wine is 100% wild fermented, no sulfur crush, completely oxidative, completely abused, left for 2 years a year in the cellar, at least 2 years in the bottle before we release it. We can get into a debate, but now I'm killing some time about wine should be drunk as they need it. Or Sauvignon Blanc should be left for a long time before you drink it. You shouldn't be drinking 2021 Sauvignon Blanc right now. So the wine became super complex. It showed all these kind of characteristics of what pure Sauvignon Blanc actually is. And we decided to continue the project, and we created the Matisse range, which is a pretty impressive wine. It's 2017. It's just been released last year. We'll go into the 18 soon. But it is showing that pure sense of place. Dan, I think I've nailed your time again.
It reflects a wonderful collaboration with a veteran South African winemaker helping a young Frenchman to find his feet in the art of producing great wine. And I love the way the two estates, the two stories have come together, and the Matisse reflects both France and South Africa on the back of that space in Constantia. A little earlier, Natasha de Villiers sending through the message, my favorite Sauvignon Blancs are from Durbanville. She is not alone. There are plenty of people who fall into that space. So let's head back to Durbanville. Andri, if I can pick up with you on something that's just been said by Matt, that question of aging Sauvignon Blanc, and especially in Johannesburg, it's not a vintage, it's a drink by date. If it's 2021, we must drink it now. But a Sauvignon Blanc, that's certainly not the case. But give people a bit of an idea on how to get the best out of their Sauvignon Blanc, both in terms of the vintage, but also the temperature. And then also, if you will, just your vision. Where's Sauvignon Blanc going? Where's Bloemendal going? Where do you think we need to be headed as a Sauvignon Blanc producing nation?
I think cellaring is quite important for the Sauvignon Blanc. Temperatures need to be as constant and as cool as possible. Obviously, Bloemendal, we make very couple different styles of Sauvignon Blanc. The one is our Waterloo Sauvignon Blanc. That's the one that you're tasting tonight. The other one is our Say de Terrasse Sauvignon Blanc, and that's our flagship wine on the property. The current release for the Say de Terrasse is a 2016 Sauvignon Blanc. That also is Blanc Fumé style, aged and fermented in 100% new French oak barrels. And those are the wines that tend to age the best. Tasted a Say de Terrasse the other day that was, I think, was 11 years old. What was it? 12 years old, 2009. and it still held a bit of acidity. It still had fresh fruits, and it's a beautiful wine made by the previous owner of Bloemendal. And for me, I think Sauvignon Blanc is a wine that should definitely be aged. Yes, they're made in different styles. You get wines like our Water Lily Sauvignon Blanc, which should preferably be drunk within the first 3 to 4 years, but then you get the big boys. You get the Sauterasses that are supposed to be aged quite a bit, and they can age anything up to 10 to 15 years if it is done correctly, mind you. Sauvignon Blanc is a great variety. We're always competing with all of them, the hipster winemakers, and everybody's focusing a lot on Chenin Blanc. And, there's all of these new varieties, or not new varieties, old varietals making a comeback. But let's not forget about Sauvignon Blanc. It's one of our most popular in South Africa. And I think it's a beautiful grape that you can do so much with. In Durbanville especially, we've got the potential of making, I make Sauvignon Blanc MCC all the way through to easy drinking Sauvignon Blanc, Water Lily, and big boy Sauvignon Blanc like the Sauterasses. But then I always also make a Noble 8 harvest. There's so much that you can do with the varietal, and there's so much still to look forward to. Different styles that new winemakers are still adapting to, and different things that we all do. And I think we should start by learning from each other, listening to Matt and you guys. It's just amazing styles coming through Stellenbosch, Elgin, and Klein Constantia. Maybe we should get together more. We should trade ideas and see what each other's doing, and so much from each other. And it's definitely a way to move forward, something that can in the future. Us as a Durbanville Wine Valley, we recently started getting our marketing up and ready again, and getting all the winemakers back together again, so we can all learn from not just great wines, but make mistakes with them. And I think it's definitely the way forward. Let's grow the varietal together, and I think it's great to be like me. I'm very proud and passionate about the farm and Durbanville itself, but let's try and focus on Sauvignon Blanc and grow the varietal back to its legendary noble status that it once had. And
I think that's a wonderful approach. It's one that also speaks to a lot of the South African wine industry as I know it. A little bit of banter amongst all of you as to who's got the coolest area, but working together, we see it so often. South African wineries, South African wine estates benefiting as a whole, and then we benefit as people who drink that wine, and we've got plenty of fans of it. Greg Sherwood watching in London, the legendary master of wine. That Cedar Terrace is the closest thing I've tasted to Pouilly Fumé in South Africa. Well, if Greg Sherwood is saying that, it must be the case. Victor Mofokeng, who is up in the Kruger, saying from Kruger Shalati, tasting Sauvignon Blanc from Truzan Signature, another wonderful South African Sauvignon Blanc. Zuko Kembele, beautiful presentation, says Zuko. We need to appreciate the role soil plays in these wines, and I think we're seeing 4 winemakers here who really are taking advantage of that terroir. Steve Steinfeld, who's such a big fan of Sauvignon Blanc. I don't know many people who adore Sauvignon Blanc quite like Steve Steinfeld. Nothing better than a chilled glass of Sauvignon. Great to have you watching. Steve is, of course, the Joburg foodie. Monique Roux reminding us about Durbanville. With 15 wineries on the Durbanville Wine Valley route, there's plenty to explore. And I think that almost answers the question of Zuko Kembele. Wish I can visit these areas physically when they do these presentations, or head down to Durbanville, Zuko, and people like Andri and Matt and Andrew and Rudger will be more than happy to oblige. Just before we wrap up, we're down at the Montegrain Independent Wine Bar, which is getting particularly festive this evening. Just a quick last touch in Elgin and Stellenbosch. Andrew, the way forward for Sauvignon Blanc, we're doing a lot right, I feel. What do we still need to work on? What still needs a bit of attention to ensure that, as Andri says, we make the very best of this wonderful, noble varietal?
Yeah, Matt gave a very good, and we sort of do tend to forget about the importance of soil. And fundamentally, there are so many different types of soil in South Africa, and they do have a big impact on the wine. Yeah, I think that the way forward is, somebody touched on the whole Chenin thing. Chenin has almost taken center stage in South Africa, and quite rightly so. You know, there's lots of very old vine Shannons around, and the guys in the Swartland have done an amazing job, and the likes of Kent Forrest of raising the profile of Shannon. But I think we should recognise that Sauvignon is a great noble variety, and you know, it is still one of the most popular wines to drink in South Africa. You know, from our point of view, we when I first planted the farm, we planted. We thought an Eben Archer persuaded me we were more like Bordeaux, so we planted quite a bit of Semillon. So our Sauvignon Blanc has about 8% Semillon, and it's generally barrel fermented. I think that is something that we as wine producers could look at. But just talking about cooperating with each other, I must say I had a tasting of 10 or 12 Sauvignons, and I tasted the Rudgers around the mountain, and he was extremely generous with feedback as to how the wine's made, and in fact, without exception, you know, the 8 wines that I had from out of Elgin, the winemakers were very generous in their support. And I think that's one wonderful thing about South Africa, is that we work together as producers. I mean, you touched on the fact that we obviously feel very strongly about our own individual regions, and quite rightly so. But there is so much good going on here, and winemakers do cooperate with each other. And you know, I remember going to Klein Constantia before I planted and met Rudger, who made that 86 Sauvignon Blanc, and he was so generous with his feedback. Guys like Rudger, who gave me the opportunity to have our first wines made at Takara before I built a cellar. No, it's a wonderful industry. It's a tough industry. You know, I've been in quite a few businesses before I bought this farm, and I without doubt it's the most challenging and the most difficult, but in many ways the most rewarding. You're dealing with nature, a wonderful product. Every year you get a new opportunity to make a great wine. Yeah, it's just a wonderful industry to be in, and I feel very, very blessed and privileged.
Well, we only brought you in because you're a champion amateur lawn bowls player, but it's been a wonderful contribution from another really important part of our Sauvignon Blanc making area. Let's get one last question from Stellenbosch, where Rudger is still insisting that it's a Sauvignon Blanc area in the heart of his red wine territory. Rudger, we've tasted it tonight. It's a beautiful wine, a little different to the others, throwing in that touch of barrel again, emphasizing what's possible, what we can do. We've got so many wines we do so well. Is it possible for us to keep focusing on all of these and make them great? And if that is the case, what are you doing? What's Stellenbosch doing in terms of its role as a winemaking area to continue with the Sauvignon Blanc story?
Yeah, I think in general, we had really good storytellers tonight with Matt and the guys. I think what makes it also really nice is that we realize that there's some good competition out there in the industry. A lot of people are always free to share their knowledge and their experience, especially for a young guy like me. You know, it's very important to learn from the older guard with their experience and just bettering on that. Yeah, I think for me it's quite important, you know, to make and keep Stellenbosch prominent. And even South Africa, I think Sauvignon Blanc is a very important category for our country. It's the most consumed wine by statistics. So yeah, I think the way forward is always just to concentrate on this varietal, and yeah, also embracing the other cultivars that we have too. I think we can learn from the other cultivar groups, and maybe there's something that can actually make this wine category better at the end of the day, being in marketing or winemaking, viticulturally, etc.
And I think in closing, you've kind of said what I wanted to say, and summing up what has been really important for me today is yes, been some terrific wine. In Andri, we've got some of the best of Durbanville, and Matt, we've got 802 different Sauvignon Blancs that are a wonderful reflection of Constantia. Andrew, you're making wine, I see, at every second restaurant, and rightly so. It's just so popular and loved. And Rudger flying the flag for Stellenbosch with something a little different. But what you're all doing is you're pushing each other. You're making great wine. You are collaborating, but you're also ensuring that our whole industry lifts and that Sauvignon Blanc category is benefiting from all of you guys making terrific wine. And again, from a purely selfish perspective, I win because I get to drink all of your wine and I love it. And that makes me both very happy and very proud of the South African wine industry. So to all four of you, I really appreciate the time for being with me today, giving us wines that have got differences that range from subtle to a little more pronounced, but which across the board just give us a reminder that much like New Zealand is no longer the best rugby playing nation in the world, so they are no longer the best Sauvignon Blanc playing nation in the world, and we've got a very proud flag to fly. So lawn bowls champions, winemakers, however you're describing yourselves today, thank you for the time. Thank you for being part of Dan Really Likes Wine from our special edition here at the Montegrain Independent Wine Bar in Stellenbosch. Enjoy tomorrow. May it be a blur of wonderful Sauvignon Blanc. Keep making terrific wine. Keep flying that flag. And we look forward to having all of you back on the show again soon. A big, big thank you to Rudger, to Matt, to Andrew, and to Andri. A big digital round of applause to you all, guys. Thank you very, very much indeed.
Thanks, Matt.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
So there we go. As they head off to delve back into their stocks of Sauvignon Blanc, I'm going to do likewise. I've got some terrific ones to try out here on the back of what's been a wonderful day in Stellenbosch, some time at Bloemendal ahead of next week's very special global launch of a brand new wine from Bloemendal. Also been out at Plaisir with Rose Jordan. They've got exciting stuff going. And Hazendal, where the new homestead's magnificent. The wine is not bad either. And now at Montegrain Independent, with four lovers of Sauvignon Blanc, giving us four different wines, giving us four different opinions, but collectively reinforcing that it's just another grape we do oh so well here in South Africa. If you're looking for some great Sauvignon Blanc to celebrate tomorrow on Sauvignon Blanc Day, well, there's a terrific collection down at Pick n Pay. Nip down or nip online. If you're a member of the Wine Club, which you should be, you'll get some great deals, 3 times the smart shopper points on all wine, including that Sauvignon Blanc. That's 20% off 10 great wines every single month. And at the moment, there's a super competition with Warwick that allows you to win over 6,000 Rand worth of wine. And Warwick will be on the show next Monday as we chat to JD, the winemaker, and discuss the wines of Warwick. We'll also be doing something rather special with Riesling, and Angela Lloyd and Daryl Balfour ahead of a Riesling celebration they're having with Ken Forrester in a couple of weeks' time. Look out for a special edition on the Spider Pig. That should be up and online tomorrow morning. And next week, we're also, as I said, going to be spending that time down at Bloemendal. A big thank you to Anisa, to Rose, to Michael, the team at Montegrain Independent for hosting me this evening and hosting Dan Really Likes Wine at Montegrain Independent. And we look forward to seeing you back online next week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting. And please, tomorrow, wherever you are in South Africa, around the world, find a bottle of South African Sauvignon Blanc and lift it proudly, because it is, once again, a wine South Africa is doing quite superbly. So from Montegrain Independent, from Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay, thanks for joining us. Goodbye.